Hi everyone, Pam Gregory, astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the second half of March and in particular the lunar eclipse that we have coming up on the 23rd. But before we get to the 23rd, on the 19th we have the Aries equinox. And these are very important times. In fact, the ancient peoples used to have ceremonies around the time of the equinox because it's like striking a tuning fork, striking a tone for the next 3 months. And certainly we have a lot of planets in mutable signs at that time, at the equinox. We have Venus, Mars, Jupiter, the nodal axis, Saturn, Neptune and Chiron, all in mutable signs. And mutable signs are to do with flexibility, changeability, having to be fast moving, being able to turn on a dime. And in fact, we have mutability strongly emphasized all of this year, but it's certainly coming through very much at that Aries equinox. So that suggests it will be a very busy time for the next 3 months and a time of rapid change. So it's very important for you to have a spiritual practice to keep you grounded and centered through those times. You might find you're very superficially busy through the next 3 months and indeed through most of 2016 too. Now, the dominant aspect that we have through the rest of this month is Jupiter in Virgo square to Saturn in Sagittarius and also in a T-square to Neptune in Pisces. And just to take the first part of that, which is the Jupiter-Saturn square, first of all, Jupiter is the planet of expansion, and Saturn is the planet of constriction or restructuring. So see where Jupiter is moving through your birth chart at the moment. It's in about the mid degrees of Virgo. So see where that falls in your birth chart, because that area of life is likely to be expanding for you. Opportunities are likely to be coming in for you. Whereas where Saturn is in your birth chart, and that's the mid degrees of Sagittarius, you might find that you're thinking about restructuring your priorities in that area. And indeed, that square between Jupiter and Saturn in general is really encouraging us to look at restructuring our lives in general. You know, are we applying too much effort and struggle in achieving what we want to do? It's looking at the way we go about what we want to achieve. And if we're trying to manifest from that efforting position, it's going to take much longer. That's using Saturn, which is essentially 3D reality. It's going to take us much longer than if we move to Neptune, which I very much see as 5D reality, and create by entering our meditation, using visualization, and bringing whatever we want into manifestation without so much effort. So that's partly what this T-square is about. And Jupiter, as well as expansion, is about wisdom as well. It's about our visions. Neptune is about our ideals and our dreams. And Saturn in combination with those is about bringing those into reality, grounding them in the real world. So potentially this can be a very productive T-square, very inspiring T-square, because the combination between Jupiter and Neptune can encourage us to think, what's the best I can be? What's the greatest I can be going forwards with the ideas that I have at the moment? Also, in a global sense, and I've written and talked a great deal about this T-square is very linked to the migrant crisis, this really tragic situation that we're seeing unfolding across Europe, because Saturn in Sagittarius is very linked to the foreigner, the migrant. Neptune in Pisces is the dispossessed, the homeless, the refugee. Also Saturn in square to Neptune is about people being lost at sea. That's the Neptune side. But also it's connected to Saturn being associated with borders and boundaries and regulations about territorial divisions, and Neptune in square to Saturn perhaps dissolving those or confusing those or making those policies flip-flop from day to day. And so there is a great need for a coherent policy to deal with that really desperate situation. And I sense that rather than by using logic, if we can apply an energetic change to that by using meditation, we may do much better. But then we have the lunar eclipse, which is coming up on the 23rd of the month. And a lunar eclipse is always like a big full moon. So this is like a super big full moon. It's happening at 3 degrees 17 of Libra, and it's happening at 5 a.m. Pacific time and 12 noon UK time. So because it's a very big full moons are always cycles of closure, completion, culmination, or fruition. So see where 3 degrees of Libra falls in your chart. Is this falling in your 10th house? Is this going to be the completion of a big project at work? Is that what it's about? Is it shining a light on your 11th house of groups and friends and networks? And sometimes a full moon, particularly a lunar eclipse, can reveal something that we weren't aware of. So is it revealing something about those friendship groups that you weren't aware of before that can perhaps take you off in another direction? Because a lunar eclipse isn't just about a culmination and a closure. It very much is about taking you off on another direction, but it's so often at a lunar eclipse rather than a solar. We see circumstances or people just eclipsed from our life. They just fall away from our lives and we move on to something different. So it's really helpful for you to see where that 3 degrees of Libra falls in your chart. Also, think back to last September, 27th of September last year, because we also had a lunar eclipse then, and that was at 4 degrees of Aries, pretty much exactly opposing this one at 3 degrees of Libra. So if you can remember what's happening for you then, what was closing then, what was coming to culmination then, and if you can join the dots between that in that eclipse in September and what's coming up on the 23rd of March, it can start to create a clear theme or a clear pattern for you, and that's when astrology really starts to offer you meaning. But at a lunar eclipse, we always have the sun and moon opposite each other because it can only occur at a full moon. So the moon is at 3 degrees of Libra, and the sun is at 3 degrees of Aries. Now the sun in Aries is all about me, and Libra is all about us. So this lunar eclipse is very much about relationship. And you may be thinking, is this relationship worth the compromise? It's very interesting that we have the Sun and Mercury and Uranus, planet of independence, in Aries, which is a very independent sign. So there may be part of you feeling quite restless. That's the Uranus in Aries side, saying, I want more independence, I want more freedom, I want to go and do my own thing. And so that may be the area that you're thinking about in relationship. Is this relationship good enough to compromise my need for independence? Is the balance correct? Am I giving too much and not getting enough? So you may be thinking around those principles. And the other wonderful thing about this full moon, we have what we call Sabian symbols, and these were downloaded, they were channeled by a psychic many years ago, but they tend to be very accurate. And it's the Sabian symbol for this full moon is the dawning of a new day when you see everything changed. So there's a great sense of awakening. There's a great sense of, at this closure, shifting to a new consciousness, seeing a different reality. The energy this month in March is tremendously powerful to create change in our lives. I think it's principally going to be focused on the area of relationship. That's going to be where our attention goes. It's interesting also at this lunar eclipse that Mercury is tightly conjunct the Sun. Now, Mercury is our mind, the planet of the mind, the mental faculty. And in the solar eclipse, we had none of that. It was very spiritual and very emotional. With this lunar eclipse, the mental faculty comes in more strongly. And Mercury, as a general principle, represents the friendships in our lives. So again, I think we could be reevaluating those and thinking, do I need to realign my friendships in a way that better reflects the new frequency that I've now shifted to in my life? Or old friendships just going to fall away because they're no longer on the same frequency? So be aware of those as themes, but we have this, as I say, wonderful Sabian symbol of the dawning of a new day when everything is changed. That feels tremendously exciting and fresh. But in order for that to occur, we really have to let the old go. That was a strong theme at the solar eclipse for particular astrological reasons, but at this cycle of completion, the lunar eclipse, there's always a strong sense of letting the old go. And because the South Node is being very highlighted at the moment, and the South Node is the past, what we've done, there has to be this sense of release. So what I'd really advise you to do is notice your self-talk. Remember, Mercury is highlighted here. Notice the patterns in your thinking that are unhelpful or negative. Notice the way you tell your stories about your life, how you define yourself when you meet new people and they ask about your life. Do you talk about the woundings? Do you talk about the betrayals? Do you talk about what a hard time you've had? Or are you just open and fresh to whatever the universe can pass to you? Because there can be some wonderful sudden opportunities with any eclipse, and therefore at this lunar eclipse too. It's a wonderful line of who would you be without your stories? Who would you be taking all those stories away as if it was a bright new day? Who would you be? So be as open as you can. Clear the old baggage, clear the space for something new that's really wonderful for you to come in. And if you don't know where these aspects fall in your chart, just check out the link appearing above or below in the description. That will take you to my store. You can buy a 2-part tutorial series. And I'm really mentioning this every time because I get many people every day who ask me, what does this mean for me in my birth chart? And of course, I can't possibly know everyone's birth chart. So it's so much more empowering if you get your free birth chart online. You can download them from various sites and very simply teach yourself how to find these aspects in your birth chart, because people are getting very excited that they're learning the basics of astrology, and every time I do an update they can understand what it means in their life for them. If you'd like more information about my book, my audiobook, or my free monthly newsletter, which is around 4,000 words now, just check out my website, pamgregory.com, or thenextstep.uk.com. Have a wonderful lunar eclipse at 3 degrees of Libra, and thanks so much for listening.